Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom in which we speak with small cap executives right after recent important news. With us today, I'm happy to have Brad Wazell. He's President and CEO of betterU Education Corp. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol betterU. For our friends in Germany, they're also on the Frankfurt Exchange under 50GA. Now, for those of you who are new to the company, that's going to be a lot of you because they just went public earlier this year. betterU is building the only global education marketplace serving India. In fact, it's also the largest such marketplace servicing the emerging markets. More than just lip service, global online education companies are partnering with betterU. For example, just recently on October 5th, Adobe partnered with betterU in order to get their training into the Indian market. The timing for betterU is perfect because the Indian government has a mandate to scale up and educate up to 500 million of its citizens by 2022, and spending on online education is doubling from 20 billion to 40 billion this year. Now, what's the press release that we're here to talk about today? I'm going to read this. betterU announces the execution of a binding letter of intent for $100 million equity investment from a Hong Kong-based investment group, and they're doing that at a valuation of $3 US per share. Brad, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here again, of course. Thank you.
Brad, first of all, congratulations. This
Thanks.
is phenomenal news. I don't think I've ever seen a financing like this in all the years that I've been doing work in this small cap space. I've never seen anything like this. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thanks. Thanks. They worked hard on it.
Now let's talk about what this means. Not what this means, but what does this say about betterU, especially because the funding came outside of North America and from the emerging markets. What does it say about betterU and where it's going?
Well, you know, we when you look at our company in general, we're focused on the emerging markets. We're focused on solving a massive problem, which is education for all. In India and other countries similar to India, their growth, they have mass population that need access to education, quality education from around the world. The challenge is there's not enough educators that are working collectively to be able to service the masses. So the investment coming from overseas is really because it's tied into the emerging markets. And a lot of the investors see that the struggles and the challenges, they're from the same territories. They see the growth potential and the opportunity. The other thing that's challenging or different from North America and emerging markets is North Americans really don't have a good grasp or understanding of the economies over there and the scalability of these markets. So it's harder for them to understand the growth potential, the investment, the risk exposure, all that kind of stuff. So that's why, you know, when you look at overseas, you look at Alibaba. Alibaba came over here. Jack Ma met with all Silicon Valley investors, couldn't get investment, and he ended up getting his first tranche of investment from SoftBank from overseas again. It's because there's a better understanding of that economy than there is here.
Now, that's the philosophy side, and that makes a lot of sense because in North America, a lot of financiers are looking at you saying, what are your numbers today, right? And what are your numbers going to be 6 months from now? So the philosophy drove this. But now let's talk about the valuation, right?
Yeah,
and how you got to that. This financing is priced at $3 US per share, which if you take, you know, current exchange rates, you're talking close to $4 per share Canadian. Which is 9 times greater than ballpark, about 9 times greater than your current share price. How did you guys together come to this valuation?
Well, you know, there's a disconnect between what shows on the market and what's actually in our business. You know, when you look at the market's a different business in general. people look at typically a business face value. They'll see a couple of press releases and things like that. They'll look at the stock price and how it's been moving over the last week or 2 weeks or 5 months, whatever the case may be. But people aren't really diving deep into what the company is really about and what we've built. If you look at my company as a good example, we've spent years building the infrastructure. If you dive deep and go on my LinkedIn page, look at the articles I've written of how to build a $1 billion company versus a $1 million company. Most companies, and I've built companies in the past, and you know, generating revenue is not really hard, to be honest with you. If you have a good product and you're a good salesperson, you can really close revenues. It's not difficult. With this company, I focused on how do we build a company that has inherent value, so that by the time we get significant funding and we're ready to grow, that we have a very strong base, a very strong foundation to be able to optimize and capitalize on the markets that we're going into. When you're looking at an emerging market like India with over a billion people with mass education needs, 500 million people to be trained up, to focus on, I've closed $100,000 a month is, to me, is not the way to build a company like this. If you look at all the big companies, Facebook and LinkedIn, all these multi-billion-dollar companies, they started similar. They started in a way that the focus was putting in place the pillars, whether that be a mass network of people adopting and using your system and getting familiar, and then from there started applying what are the revenue areas that we can focus on. While we've been focused on revenue and putting in place what the revenue is, our goal has been build a company that's solid, that has good partnerships, good leadership, good infrastructure, ability to grow and scale as we grow into other territories. And then once we get properly capitalized, we just turn it on. We're able to execute and grow quite quickly. So when you look at the market price versus our valuation, diving deep into our company, the company that's looking at investing in us, evaluate that. And after we had many conversations about it, they agreed we were very undervalued because what we've built is unique, and we've spent a lot of time and money building all these pillars with great partnerships from around the world. 8 countries, we have a lot integrated. So it's much more than the surface value of what you see in the market today.
And this is a great lesson for everybody at home that's watching this, because it's happened to betterU. You know, you have to take, if you're a true investor in the small cap space, you can't be looking at today's revenue and the next quarter. You've got to be looking at whether a company can actually put in place an infrastructure business that can sustain itself on a big valuation for the long term. And if you're taking a deep dive into betterU, and we've been banging the table for everybody saying, take a look at what the company's setting up, you would have seen this. But if you haven't, Brad, give us an example of a couple of the pillars. I know you've got a number. Well, what are a couple of the pillars that you put in place, which you wouldn't have put in place if you had focused on revenue and just making sales and getting contracts, and you would have missed out on this opportunity? Give us a couple of pillars that sustain the valuation that the Hong Kong group invested in.
Sure. Look at mass marketing in India. One of the biggest things when you're talking about a country like that and what we're trying to accomplish, education for all, in order for us to reach people on a consistent basis across the entire country, we have to have visibility. Extremely expensive to pay for media on a regular basis. So we've partnered with Times of India. We had a 150 crore investment, which is about $30 million of media spend, which we did a couple years ago, which we haven't really used to date because we're putting the other things in place. There was a press release that launched a few weeks back that talks about Hindustan Times, which is another $10 million media investment. So each one of them are strong in certain territories. So Hindustan Times is stronger in the north, Times of India is stronger in the south. They both overlap in different areas. But by having these partnerships in place, by the time we build our team, because you got to look at it from this perspective. Once we start reaching out to mass markets, and you're talking 100 million people, how do you support a group of 100 million people? So we've put in place this mass marketing that will enable us to do it, and then we need the infrastructure to support that. So that's one. So working on the infrastructure we've been doing with we have Amazon Web Services we use in India so that we have scalability when we need it. I've put in place leadership in not just India, but here. So I have CTO, we have CFO, we have our directors of marketing and all the leaders in place that are very good at what they do so that I don't have to do it. Now they can start focusing. And when we start looking at growth of team members, I have people that can do that. The other things are looking at networks and how do we tap into the large networks that need support. In India, the 500 million people that need to be trained up are tied to the skills initiative. And India has set up what's called Skill India, and they've set up the National Skills Development Council. And under that council, there's 40 sector skills that have been set up. Each one of these sectors has their own mandate to skill an entire network of people. And I'll take the telecom sector. Telecom sector has to skill up over 8 million people over the next 5 years as part of their mandate. They need support. They need someone to do that. In order for us, someone like us or anybody to support them, you have to have breadth and depth of content, but you also have to take time to build these relationships with these institutions, because they're at close to government level, and they're not just partnering with anybody. They want to make sure if we partner with you, you're actually going to help us accomplish training for up to 9 million people. So we signed a deal, and you saw the press release that went out with that with the Telecom Sector Skill Council, where we're going to work together on integrating what betterU has built into what they're trying to accomplish to help skill their network as well. And we have other sector skills that we're working on. So all these pieces of setting up partnerships, integrating our technologies is all outside of revenue, right? It's all focused on building the foundation so that then we start working on the mass marketing and the training. Aside from all of that, you need content, right? From an education perspective. Putting together content partners from all over the world is not easy. Signing Adobe was a lengthy process because, again, Adobe, it's a reputable name. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. They want to make sure they're partnering with a company that's focused and that they're aligned with their objectives for the country. We have other groups like Pluralsight and the Bombay Stock Exchange Institute, ICICI Bank, one of the largest banks in India, and so many more. There's about 60 or so partnerships that we've integrated in. Every single one of these partnerships is not revenue-based. It's built based on building a partnership relationship with them, showing them what we're trying to accomplish, how we can do it collectively, integrating them into our system, which requires the onboarding of our team here and their products and information, the integration of our back ends to make sure it works. All these things take time, right? And again, none of it's based on revenue. It's based on building the foundation so that by the time we're ready, we have over 10,000 programs on our marketplace, from kindergarten up to corporate programs, university. We have a corporate division. We have an employment section that ties into job opportunities. So we've built this integration of all these different components before even focusing on revenue, because we know that once it's all together, someone's going to see the value in our company and say, you know what you've built is what the country needs, and you've been working towards putting everything together so that by the time proper capitalization comes like this, now we just execute and grow.
And it makes it nearly impossible for anybody else to say now, the concern you had 5 minutes ago, which is, hey, that's a great idea, we should do this as well, because you just can't turn on a tap like that. And those are the pillars, that structure that Brad's been talking about, rather than focusing on getting a contract generating revenue, which is great to a lot of small cap investors. Putting that infrastructure in place makes the company pretty much untouchable in the online education marketplace. So congratulations on doing that, Brad. Let's switch gears a little bit, look at some of the terms of this financing. And sure, these are some terms I've never seen before. The one term is the 5-year lockup. I've seen 1-year lockups before, and typically those lockups come from insiders who want to show the market that they're confident in the future of the business they're launching, and they're going to do a 1-year lockup. I've never seen a 5-year lockup, and I've never seen a lockup of this degree when it comes from an outside investment group. What does that say in terms of their confidence in the future of betterU and not being worried about having to dispose of any shares in the next 5 years? And what message does that drive to small cap investors at home?
Well, what's great about this investor is their group is they have no interest in making money along the way. They have their own investment mandate. They have a certain level of investment that they want to make, which but for them to achieve it, they've agreed, you know what, we know it's going to take some time. So for us, we're going to let you run the company, keep building it, keep creating the value. We've created a path to show how we can get to that return on investment that they're looking for. It will take several years to get there. So they've agreed, you know what, we're not going to touch our money for 5 years. We're going to let you build that value so that by the time it gets to the point where we want to exit, we know we're at the level of our return. So, and
in the meantime as well, for anybody who's got concerns at home about, well, what if they try and take over the company and try and run their own mandate? They've also agreed to vote to have you as their proxy for voting on any board of director appointments and votes over that period of time? What is that?
Yeah. So that was one of our concerns as well. Well, I've had experience in the past where I've owned a company where I lost control of my own board. I lost my voting. I moved down into a lower voting position, unfortunately. So from past experience, I realized that I didn't want to take this chance. The board was in agreement with this. How do we protect the shareholders? And one of the things was we need to control the board, and because the board ultimately it runs the company, right? So they agreed.
Right? Steve Jobs lost control of the board.
Well, there you go. So when we talked to them, we just explained, one of our concerns was this change of control could result in replacement of the board, which would replace management, which could take the company in a different direction. And so we suggested that I get their voting rights for board nominations, with the exception of two. They have two nominees that they can put on the board. The rest of the board, the controlling part of the board, is a decision that I make. Currently, right now, I'm a major shareholder, so my vote holds a lot of weight to who goes on the board right now. So they agreed that based on where the company has been coming from, what they've seen in terms of building and the leadership, and they have complete confidence in what we're doing. So they agreed. They agreed that they would give this the voting rights to me.
Clearly, when you look at the valuation, you look at the terms, this investment group sees a much bigger picture for their investment over the next 5 years. I think that's clear as day. The commitment that they're making is admirable, and it's inspiring that you're able to bring this kind of investment to the table. I am going to play devil's advocate just for a minute, though. There are a couple of steps, because it's a binding letter of intent, but there are a couple of steps that need to be accomplished before the financing is closed, and I want to talk about your confidence on that. One of them is the fact that the group has to provide the exchange with proof of funds that they can actually that they can actually make this investment. That's expected over the next week or 2 weeks, according to the press release. In addition to that, this group is just setting up their fund, and one of the conditions is that they have their Cayman subsidiary set up by the middle of January. What is your comfort level and confidence level in the fact that these two steps are going to be satisfied, leading to a close of the financing in March of 2018?
Yeah, absolutely. So the clarification, the fund itself, the $10 billion fund, it's already been set up. The press release is talking about the Cayman, setting up the funding for the Cayman Islands to fund their North American investments. Okay. The confidence in the proof of funds is extremely high. We've been talking with them for a long time. When this was asked of them to provide proof of funds, they replied right away, without delay. Yes, we'll provide it right away. We'll go to the bank and get it. So they'll be able to provide that shortly, and once we have it, we'll provide to the exchange, and then they'll do their due diligence, and hopefully the stocks will get released right after that, and we'll do a press release saying that's happened. The definitive agreement is scheduled for when it's scheduled. We've already been spending a lot of time detailing out everything that talks in the press release and in the definitive agreement. So we are working with the company. I'm very confident that that's going to close. Then the rest is, of course, in January and when the funds come in. So that process, as we're getting closer to that happening, we'll announce where we are with that process to make sure everyone's transparent. We're transparent with the information. Everyone's aware of it. I am confident. We would have not have launched this press release if we weren't confident in this deal in general. We spent several months on it. It's something that hasn't been new. We took the proper process and steps to make sure that we disclosed it right. We just didn't launch a press release once we signed the deal several weeks ago. We reached out to IROC and the exchange to provide them with the information to make sure that they were on the same page and that we were disclosing properly. And it's, from my perspective, it's very tough not to be able to tell anybody what's going on, especially over the last couple of weeks. People were assuming that things were wrong with the company, and I was getting calls from shareholders I've never even met before that were upset, and just trying to alleviate their concerns without saying anything, right? And it was very, very difficult for a company. But I knew inside that we were doing what's right for the shareholders, and of course TSX was as well. So the process we were following it was required for what we're doing. And as we continue forward, we will do all the right steps to make sure that we're informing the market, that we're involving TSX and making sure that they're comfortable, because it's important that we don't give out misinformation or we don't mislead anybody, because what we're doing, we're building a solid company, and the stock exchange, it's important, so we need to make sure that our information is put out accordingly. But we are confident in this deal, otherwise we would not have released this press release.
Yeah, and I had to ask.
Of course.
That was my assumption. There's no way you're going to announce something like this unless you have complete confidence. But at the same time, I know, people at home, this is the kind of thing that they're thinking about. And by the way, based on what Brad said with all the phone calls he's been getting, the good news for everyone at home is we are going to be launching a CEO verified discussion forum for betterU. I believe the company, we didn't even know about this press release, what it was going to be. We didn't know when it was going to come out, but we knew there was a press release coming, and only once that was done, which is today, would the company announce the launch of its CEO verified discussion forum. So that means you don't have to call Brad, don't give him any grief. You'll be able to go onto Agoracom, onto the betterU discussion forum, where you'll be able to post questions and get responses from verified members of company management, including IR, potentially even Brad, but we know he's really busy. But that's going to be a great vehicle for all of you at home, because there's going to be a lot of moving parts now. Things are going to move a lot quicker once this financing is done, and that's the best way to keep up to date with the company. But Brad, let me congratulate you again and leave you with last words before we sign off.
Sure. We still have lots of work ahead of us. We just like I've told everybody, any deal that anybody goes through, things could happen. You just never know, right? So people still have to be, they have to have that in their back of their mind. We are doing everything we possibly can to make sure everything comes to fruition. The one thing I'll point out is every press release that we've put out there, we've either closed or are closing. We haven't announced any news that we haven't moved forward with. So we have lots of stuff in the pipeline, more stuff that's coming. We are a company that a lot of hard workers here to make this come to fruition, and we will not intentionally put any news out there that's not legitimate. And I after some of the calls I got over the last couple of weeks, I want to emphasize this: we are not these type of people. We are building a solid company.
You got IROC and the TSX Venture looking over your exchange at the same time, so they're going to make sure of that as well. No issue there whatsoever, Brad. Look, we could talk about this for another hour. We'll leave it there, but we do know that we're going to have you back a number of times now with greater frequency, given when the financing milestones come up, in addition to other news and business development news. So thanks for joining us so much today. Congratulations to your team again, and we're looking forward to having you back on with more and more milestones being achieved.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
You've been watching Brad Wazell. He's President and CEO of betterU Education Corp. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol BTRU. And for our friends in Germany, it trades on Frankfurt under 50GA. The company's stock will be halted for about another week or so in anticipation of the proof of funds that the TSX Venture has requested. But make sure in the meantime, get to the company's website. Take a look at all its press releases. Do some deep dive due diligence. You've got a week to get your due diligence done, which is a beautiful scenario. Get to Agoracom, watch all the interviews we've done with Brad over the last 6 or 7 months. Everything Brad has talked about has come through. He's got great credibility with Agoracom. That's why he's one of our, and we banged the table on this before, that's why betterU is one of our favorite long-term holds. You've heard me say it here before, and we've got a lot of clients, so I can't say that for every client, but that shows you our objectivity, and we're happy to see that the company's delivered on something great today. Thanks for joining us. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you soon.